Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Thank you very much for joining me. Our patient is an AP60B. I actually don't know what this is. I mean, it's in the ticket, probably. Yeah, there's a... I would think this is Outback. Very nice touch protecting the pins. Nobody ever does that. Very rarely anyone does. Which means that, since there's never been an issue, this is probably not necessary, but it's a nice touch. And I would definitely do that. Although I just packed them differently, so they need any protection there. The pins are pretty nicely hidden over there. We have no prior repair attempt, so this will be nice and quick. Nice and quick. Alrighty, there we have it. And let's do it quickly, because I got a lot of stuff to do today and not a lot of time to do it. Because I got a little... Yesterday was 4th, right? The Independence Day. I don't know why in the United States nobody celebrates Independence Day. Everybody celebrates the July 4th. It's, I understand that the July 4th is the Independence Day, but no one refers to it as, Happy Independence Day. No, everybody says Happy 4th, or I don't know why. It's actually relatively, it turns out to be a pretty trick question when you ask someone when did U.S. Declare independence? 1776, right? If I remember correctly. But everybody knows that. But if you do a follow-up question, like on which day was it, right? Or month? And usually people don't know, even though we celebrate it on July 4th. So, I would expect people to not know that it's 1776, but still know that it's going to be July 4th. Kind of funny. But recently I've been listening to some videos, or those kind of channels on YouTube that do TikTok videos. Basically they collect make a big collection of TikTok videos on certain subjects, and then also read the comments and stuff, and provide some commentary. There's plenty of these channels now. I have no idea why they're so popular, but I watch them too. Right? So one that I've seen recently going a lot, other than obviously people getting laid off and job numbers being much lower, although I don't know what's going on over there, because honestly I never trust those numbers either way. But on Fox News, it was live. They were receiving the numbers for how many jobs were added, and they were expecting 90,000 added, and it turned out to be 30,000 lost. Right? So way lower than expected. And then, I don't know, the next day, suddenly those numbers change. So I don't know what's going on over there. But as I said, I never trust those numbers. When the previous administration was in power, those numbers for some reason were crazy good, but somehow none of us could find jobs. So yeah, I don't think those numbers, even, I'm not saying that these are numbers that are, manipulated, but they don't seem to just represent the actual condition of the market, of the job market. But other than people being laid off and not being able to find jobs, I looked into all those Airbnb owners. There's a lot of them that are now getting rid of their Airbnb properties. And sure, some of that, because everybody blames economy for that, And of course, economy is going to have some impact on it, but I don't think that is a full story, or not even the most significant part of this story. You know, that's not the economy. Sure, it will have some impact, but it's not like you're getting rid of your Airbnb because of the economy. I've discussed it with a few people. We also had some discussions with my wife regarding, you know, because she would always say that it's a good business, right? We like get a property and then Airbnb it, right? And someone else is paying off your mortgage, right? Or rent it, but that's, you know, long-term rental, right? Airbnb is a short-term rental, right? Plain and simple. So it's kind of like a hotel in a way, but it's your private property. So immediately when Airbnb first came around, we have actually with my wife and our son, we used a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but we've used it quite a few times, Airbnbs here and there. And my experience was always mixed. I mean, it was convenient. Some places were really nice, some a little less so. Some owners were a bit, I don't know how to call it, a bit too anal about stuff. And, you know, you're charging me cleaning fee, yet you expect that I will, you know, you give me a whole list of chores that I gotta do before I check out. So, you know, to me it sounded like, you know, you either charge me a cleaning fee or I clean up after myself. And I'm fine with both. I'm fine with either, but not with both at the same time, right? You're both charging me cleaning fee and I have to clean up. But fine, you know, you also don't, it's kind of a review based, you know, under method, where, you know, if you leave the place a mess, then, you know, you get a poor review, and then some other Airbnb owner might not, or might be reluctant to rent you the property, right? So that, for that reason, you know, I had kind of a mixed experience, but not bad experience by no means. However, instantly, as soon as I learned about this business model, how it works, and I started using it, immediately I thought to myself that this isn't gonna work, or maybe more accurately, I wouldn't want to do it. To all those arguments that I've heard either from my wife or friends, or even, you know, some arguments online, that it's a good thing to invest in, that it's the easiest way to invest in real estate. I don't think so, because immediately I thought, like, how is that going to work in reality, right? How I always, whenever I plan on doing something, or, you know, like come up with some idea, be the business idea or anything in between, I always think of the worst case scenario, right? And my friends tend to just say that I just worry too much, but it's not worrying. It's not like I worry. I just think, you know, if this happens, what am I gonna do? And if that horrible thing happens, what am I gonna do? And so on. A friend of mine is more of he always criticizes me for that, saying that, you know, if it happens, then you're gonna worry. Why do you worry in advance, right? But I don't think that's a good approach, because you do want to have some plan B, C, and D, or at least it's not like you have to prepare for everything, right? But at least have a plan. Like if the problem appears, you at least know what to do. You know where to start. You're not blindsided, and suddenly start thinking, what am I going to do now? You already have at least some semblance of a plan that you're gonna what you're gonna do in that situation. So naturally, I always thought when I was being convinced that it's such a good business, first, how many how much turnover you're gonna have, how many customers are gonna come into your property to rent it, and say you're in a good location, like some kind of, I don't know, student town or like tourist town or something like that. So that takes care of that. You should probably have a lot of customers often, so fine. But now, to make that work, it's not like you can just leave the property as it is, as initially a lot of people did, and everything was kind of paperless without you didn't even talk to any human in that whole transaction. So you would pay online, and you would pick up your keys from the box, and then when you're done, when you're leaving the property, you leave those keys in that box, and don't forget to scramble the code, which I always forget, so sorry about that. I'm not doing that on purpose. I'm on vacation and I'm going back home. I got other stuff on my mind. Your property is not my priority, or your safety of your property, or what have you. Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works. We all have our problems, and your problems are not my problems, and my problems are not your problems, right? So it's not nothing personal. It's not like I want to hurt you on purpose. It's just I don't care. You know what I mean? It's just like you don't care about my problems, I don't care about your problems. You worry about yours, I worry about mine. So now, can you actually operate the business like that? I don't know how many people did manage to do that, but I always figured that you can't just leave it running like that, because the customer leaves, right? And they might leave a big mess, right? You have to prepare the apartment or house or what have you for the next customer. Not to mention, if you have a lot of people, usually that's going to be a party house, right? So there's going to be some damages, and some of those damages might just be, the toilet doesn't work, the sink broke, or that kind of stuff. Basically necessities that are needed for the next customer to come in to actually pay you money. Otherwise you get bad review. And that bad review that you give your customer, it doesn't hurt them that much. First of all, they can just create another account on another email or what have you. Use a family member to create another account, and so on. And even if they are unable to create another Airbnb account because they abused the system, then fine, they're not gonna create another account. You, on the other hand, you're stuck with the property. You need to maintain the property. You need to pay taxes. You need to pay whatever, insurance, what have you. So if you get stuck with a bad review, that's gonna hurt your business. So there's a lot more accountability for you as the owner than me as a customer, right? So my first conclusion was that no, it's not a beautiful business. It's not a great business, because it's going to take a lot of effort, and you need to maintain it, and you never know how many people are going to be staying with you. And now all of these concerns that I had back then, they are partially the reason why people stopped doing Airbnb. It's not the main, perhaps, concern or the main reason why they stopped doing it, because unfortunately another reason is that there are repercussions of everything, and this is something that I didn't think about. Actually, this didn't even cross my mind. So, It's not like I'm a great predictor of future or a great businessman or anything like that. When you rent, Airbnb your house in a quiet neighborhood, you don't know who you're renting it to. It's not like you're doing background check on everybody. There might be, and probably the majority are, basically party people, right? So they're gonna be loud. There's gonna be a lot of cars. There's gonna be, there might be some problems. Neighbors might not be okay with that. The neighbors didn't. The neighbors are not getting any benefit from that. You're getting the benefit because you're renting out your property. And they have to live basically next to a hotel, right? And some people did have a problem with that and they complained. So in some areas, the city said, okay, you want to do Airbnb, fine, but you're paying extra taxes, extra charges, extra insurance, or what have you. Now, obviously, that still doesn't do anything for the neighbors, because neighbors don't get any money from those taxes, but it reduces the number of Airbnbs because it carries heavier cost, right? And main thing when I was thinking about it, before even understanding how that works, my first and the most major concern was that you're essentially doing a hotel, right? You're playing a hotel. Hotels have the thinnest margins of all businesses. That's why there are no small business hotels. I mean, there are some, but not necessarily in the US, right? But there are some small business hotels where they have like 6 rooms, right? They modified their big house and into a hotel, and it's like a nice cozy hotel. They're actually pretty popular in Poland, maybe in Europe in general. Sure, but they are usually quite luxurious and horribly expensive, and that's why, right? Because it's a small business. And in addition, it's usually not the only business that the family does. So so even if they have a really bad month or bad 6 months, it's not the end of the world. In US, on the other hand, this is less popular, and it's probably because of all the taxes and everything that there are no, or very rarely there are some small hotel businesses. Because of all these taxes and it's really difficult business to even run, It's not even only about the money. It's you to make your razor thin margins, you have to run everything perfectly. Nothing can go wrong. No major repairs, for example. And if anything goes wrong, you're screwed. You're not gonna make any money because of thin margins and a lot of costs up front. That's why the big companies run hotels, right? The big chains. Very few small businesses, if any. I don't remember any. I don't recall any small business hotel in US. It's always a big chain. So despite all the people around me telling me that it's a great business, I was always unconvinced. It always seemed to me like, why are you doing this to yourself? There's no such thing as free money, and there's no such thing as easy money. No matter what business you do, it's never going to be easy. It's always going to require a lot of work, a lot of effort, and if you think that you found a business that you can do no work and just collect profit, even if you do find something like that, it's going to be for a year, maybe 2 tops, and it's just going to dry out. It's not going to last for long, basically. It also depends on a lot of factors. And right now, since our tourism is on all-time low, and it will be getting lower and lower, because we collectively decided that we don't want people visiting our beautiful country. Our beautiful country is only for us, not even for immigrants. So I am not welcome either. But if you're not welcoming tourism, Airbnb is also going to suffer. So this is probably part of this puzzle. Everything in those businesses, in any business, pretty much, there is no one factor that decides whether your business is successful or not successful, whether you have customers or you don't. It's always a huge number of factors that kind of collectively decide whether your business is viable or not. Now, property taxes are also out of control, and it's not even that. I was under the impression that as long as you have fixed mortgage, you're good, right? If you have adjustable mortgage, then you might wake up one day and not being able to afford your own house. But no, you also have insurance, you also have escrow, you have all kinds of stuff that keeps changing, even though your mortgage is not changing physically or essentially, right? You're still other stuff is changing, and that increases your cost. And sometimes it's very hidden. You're just basically not aware you're not aware what's happening. And recently, the bill that passed right, both Senate and House, you might argue that it doesn't take away Medicaid from anyone, it doesn't increase taxes and that kind of stuff, but this is a sneaky way of doing that. Now imagine that I told you that I'm not, that say this repair that I'm doing right now is free, right? No money. You send me the ECM and I fix it for free. Your expectation would be that you send an ECM, I fix it, I send it back, and you get no bill. But there is a tiny clause, or one of 50 tiny requirements in the agreement that we sign, that once I received your ECM, I write you an email, and you have to respond to that email in the matter of hour, in 1 hour. But of course I send that email at 1 o'clock in the morning, almost ensuring that you're not going to be able to, because I'm not going to tell you when that email is coming, right? I'm just going to send it, and you have 1 hour to respond. Failure to respond carries a cost of $100. Then, once the ECM is repaired, right, you have to provide the return address, but not earlier, not immediately with an ECM. No, after ECM is repaired, then I write you an email again at 1 o'clock in the morning asking you for the return address. And again, if a failure to give me the address carries a cost of holding your device in the shop, and say that's like $50 an hour, say, right, to be conservative. Right? And again, I write it at 1 o'clock at night, and you don't respond until 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, or the same day, technically. And your total bill for free repair is few $100s because of all these things. And I can tell you that, hey, I'm not charging anything for it, right? The same way, are they taking away your Medicaid? No, but now the requirements are so strict that they are made to set you up for failure, basically. So a lot of people are going to lose Medicaid, but the government can say that, well, it's because you failed to meet expectations, you failed to do what you were required to do, so it's your fault, it's not our fault. In my view, that's very dishonest. Either take away benefits or keep the benefits. Now, don't just raise the bar of what the sick person has to do to keep their Medicaid, because only sick people need health insurance, healthcare, right? Healthy people don't. Healthy people that have time to jump through all those hoops, they don't need the Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. But sick people struggling with chronic diseases or what have you, maybe they can't even get out of the house, but they need to go to the government office and sign in person, otherwise they're going to lose their coverage, right? And again, they know what they're doing. And I just don't like this dishonesty. Like either take it away or keep it. Don't just manipulate the system so enough people lose their coverage and we're gonna call it that it's their fault. I don't like that. Personally, it's not like I haven't seen stuff like that, and it's actually, I could talk about Polish healthcare a lot as well, but at least on paper it is free. It's the same kind of problem. It's free, but you have to wait in line for life-saving surgery. You have to wait 6 months, but you have 2 months to live if you don't get that surgery, right? Again, it's not like there's no free healthcare, right? But in practice, it doesn't exactly work the way we would expect it to work. But at least that could be explained by lack of availability, right? It's free healthcare, but the government can't hire all the doctors in Poland, so they also don't pay that well. So very few doctors actually get a job like that. All the other ones, the successful doctors, they go work in private sector, right? So at least that could be explained. But this actually supports, because I predicted that come midterm elections, the Democrats are gonna win by a landslide. And it's gonna be very hard for any Republican now to run on this bill, right? To kind of defend this bill. Because you can address it in nice, sophisticated, eloquent words. Sure, but you're not gonna convince a person that did have a medical coverage, and then your guy came along and they lost it, right? That's the same reason why Democrats lost last major election, is because they kept convincing us that everything is fine, it's awesome, the jobs are being created and everybody has work, and here we are on the ground being unable to find any work, like any, not even the McDonald's. So obviously the Republicans are going to be struggling with that now. So the government is going to be taken over by Democrats. We're going to probably return to all that stuff that got Democrats in the hot water in the first place, like basically going crazy with a lot of nonsense. Well, maybe not nonsense, but like going too far with this progressive agenda, right? And that's what pissed people off, very understandably so. But the thing nowadays is that there is no clear mission, there are no clear core values. If I had to choose, like whether I'm a conservative or progressive, right? I would think, especially a few years ago, I would say conservative. Not that I'm not progressive, but I do want those core Republican values, those Republicans that freed slaves, okay? Those Republicans that were, for personal accountability, party accountability, the traditional values and freedom, keeping government out of our business, and now they flipped on all of that. Now suddenly the government is deciding whether my wife can get an abortion or not. The government decides whether the book is allowed in school or not. Uh, Crazy. This was what Republicans fought against, and now this is what Republicans do. And where's that accountability? If you run on, I don't even care that much about the war because it's not impacting my life directly. But if you run on, ending the war, then end the war or admit that, well, I tried, and Biden ran on canceling student debt, but at least he tried, right? He did bring it in front of Congress. Everybody knew that it won't happen because it's somebody's money. Who's gonna just suddenly cancel trillions of dollars in debt? Who's gonna pay for that? So yeah, no one really believed that this would happen. But okay, at least you tried, you failed, fine. But now we're saying that no, I was being sarcastic. Like, what is that? Jesus, being sarcastic. That's how we're gonna justify the undelivered promises. And then the main promise that no one's gonna lose healthcare and we're all gonna be rich and we're gonna be making money out of tariffs. And we're not making money out of tariffs. We're paying the tariffs, and we're losing. The same with. I wasn't surprised that this administration is going to add $3 to $5 trillion to deficit, because previous Republican administration, previous Trump administration also added like 5 trillion or whatever, or 8 trillion or something like that. So blew up the deficit. So I expected that they would do the same thing this time around, which they did. But at least I was expecting that they're going to deliver on something, like anything. And now ICE is going to have a bigger budget than the national defense. But where are our priorities? Who are we anymore as a country? That is my question. But we'll see what it's going to be. It doesn't look like it's going to be doesn't look like the future looks bright. The repercussions of all this are going to carry over many years, over many administrations, just like the mistakes of the past still are carrying consequences until this day. And one thing that I'm really worried about is a depression, because we're just kind of repeating the history now. And again, I think I mentioned that before, but we like to think of a depression like it just happened overnight, but it was years in the making before it actually crashed, right? So we're kind of that's why they don't want to lower the interest rates at the Fed. And for some reason, I also don't get it. Why does this administration push? Why does it push for the lowering interest rates if the market conditions are so great? So either it's really crappy and we need to lower interest rates, otherwise the market is going to collapse, or the market is great and we don't need to lower interest rates, maybe we need to raise them. And what was it? They wanted 2 points or 3 points decrease, which is unheard of. Never by that much. Half a point, 1 point maybe, but not 2 or 3. So the market must be in the really bad condition if that's what they want to do, because obviously they're not going to tell you. And I don't care which administration. Obviously politicians are not going to be honest with you because they don't want to cause panic and stuff. So we're not going to know. But instead of listening to what they say, just watch what they do. If they want to lower interest rates, it's bad. It's always bad when that. So be careful out there. Hold on, and you know, maybe it's gotta get a lot worse before it'll get better. It's been simmering. This whole situation's been simmering over the last decade almost. So there needs to be some kind of crash, some kind of awful situation, so we all learn our lesson. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much for listening to my rants. I know fewer and fewer people are interested in those, but I still have ECMs to repair, so I'm sorry. Thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate you. And I shall see you in the next one.